All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the College and Institutional Fit panel. My name is Cynthia Perez, and I am with Families in Schools. I do marketing communications here, but I also get to play around and get to know people through our community engagement initiatives. And so I'm very, very happy to be here with this lovely panel of people that really understand institutional fit. And so I would really love to talk a little bit about Families in Schools. What we do is we support families as they go through their educational pipeline with their students. So what we do is we focus on programming and supports and different campaigns so families can understand their children's different milestones all the way from infancy through transition to college. And so for students that are out there, basically what we do is help you get in touch with your parents and have a better communication with them, hopefully as you continue to grow in your career and in your career path, college and career path. And so I just wanted to say again, thank you to all the wonderful panelists for the Passport to Success College and Career Edition students out there. We hope that you'll be tuning into our scholarship. Our scholarship is due at the beginning of September. And so if you haven't been coming along on the ride, remember to tune in to the Passport to Success College and Career piece. Check out our website at familiesinschools.org. Again, that's familiesinschools.org, and you can check out the wonderful scholarship opportunity that we have. And we're giving away 5 scholarships. Each one of them is $1,000, and 3 of them are specifically for LA County students, and then 2 of them are specifically for students in throughout California. So I'd like to introduce my colleague, Jessica Torres.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is Jessica Torres, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with Families in Schools. And today I'll be introducing our moderators. Our moderator for today's panel is Martinique Starnes, and she is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Westside Neighborhood School, which is actually located here in Los Angeles. So Martinique, go ahead and I'll give you this opportunity to get us started. Thank you.
I'm on mute. Thank you, Jessica, for the introduction. And thank you to everyone for being here this evening. I know that we have a lot going on, and sometimes it's hard to see beyond the end of this week, but I commend everyone who's tuning in to keep your eye focused on the ultimate goal of getting into college and taking the steps to do what you need to do now in order to make that dream a reality. So I think before we get started, the best thing to do would probably be to introduce our panelists. So I guess I will call you so that we aren't all speaking at the same time. I'll call on you and you can introduce yourself. Tell us your name, what you do, and where you do it. So we'll start, Jaime, you're at the top of my screen, so we'll start with you. You're on mute.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. I hope this Thursday afternoon is going great. And just to follow up on what our moderator said, we're living in some tough times. No one has lived through times like this, and no school could have prepared us to learn during a pandemic or to teach during a pandemic. So having the unknown and the uncertainty has brought a lot of anxiety and stress to us as adults and professionals. And I can only try to start to imagine what it brings to young people like yourselves, and talking about this college application process, which is, even it's stressful in a normal time, Now it's even more stressful during the pandemic. My name is Jaime Carillas. I represent the USC Annenberg School for Communications and Journalism, where I am the director of the Annenberg Youth Academy. Apply to my program next year. Here it is right here. I'm also the civic engagement coordinator for the school, where I run all of our community and youth programs. And I am a fellow of civic engagement at the USC Center for Third-Based Thinking, where we work with youth in the community to teach them the value of soft skills. Born and raised in the beautiful city of South LA or South Central LA, like we call it, growing up, and really excited to be here and share a little bit more about my journey, but also the ups and the downs, because we all have downs, and it's important to share why it's important to highlight and celebrate the ups. I think it's more important to highlight the downs. So I look forward to spending the next hour-ish with you guys.
Awesome, thank you. Darlene?
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Darlene Zarazu. I am currently a graduate assistant at the Office of Equity and Inclusion at the USC Rossier School of Education, and I'm also a student success coach with Cal Sopele at Huntington Park High School, which is a high school that I attended when I was younger. And I'm currently at USC doing my Master of Education in Educational Counseling. And thank you for having me.
Awesome. Nasario.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Nasario Vasquez. I am the program coordinator for a TRIO talent search project through Cal State Dominguez Hills, serving communities in South Central, serving high schools and middle schools in South Central. And so the work that I do through this TRIO project, right, is exactly this, right? Helping students find the right fit for college, helping families understand the college going process, creating a college going culture at home, walking students and families through the financial aid application. And, you know, it's like Jaime mentioned, right? These are unprecedented times. And so we're all trying to navigate that together. I am also a graduate student at Cal State Los Angeles. I am pursuing a master's degree in Latin American Studies. I am also a father of 2 toddlers, one of them navigating preschool. And so anyway, yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Eliza.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Elisa Hoyos-Vences. I actually am an associate dean at LA Trade Tech. So I oversee our outreach and recruitment, our Dream Resource Center, and our Welcome Center. I assist students in anything that has to do with onboarding. So whether it's filling out your college application, helping you become better acquainted with the campus, connecting you with counselors. With our Dream Resource Centers, we definitely work to provide services for undocumented students, let them know the resources available, whether it's financial aid, assistance to find a career, you know, paying for their books, things of that sort. So I'm a first generation college student and professional. I came to this country from Mexico with my parents when I was about 7 years old, grew up in Compton. So I'm from the area. And I've always seen education as one of the tools that students can use and our community use to push forward. So I want to say thank you for all of you who are attending today's live stream, because it definitely, you know, shows that you're investing in your future. And I want to make sure that I say thank you for being with us on this hot day, because I know it's getting hot.
It is indeed. So let's just jump right in. I know that I spent about 10 years working as a college counselor in a high school. So in that time doing that, I've seen college representatives play all kinds of roles. I mean, they're working for the university to help students through the process, but they're also serving as a mentor, and they're also serving as a support system. Can you guys talk about what your role is in supporting students through the process in your particular institution, and how that role evolves throughout the process of students applying to college? So what is your role in your institution, and what does that evolution look like through the life cycle of the admission and financial aid processes? And anybody can jump in.
So I can start with that. As an associate dean, like I said, one of the things I oversee, one of the departments is our outreach and recruitment department. So one of the big things we push for is how do we get our students to understand what are the pros of coming to a community college, and what are some of the different careers that they can start at a technical school such as LA Trade Tech. So one of the things we really push on is getting our students to understand that coming to LA Trade Tech can be to complete a certificate, which means that within anywhere from a year to 2 years, they'll be able to join the workforce in one of the technical schools or technical careers that they've chosen, but they also have the ability to start their transfer process. So if a student is interested in being a teacher, they can start that part at LA Trade Tech and transfer to a 4-year institution and then proceed to get the credentials or their masters. So for me, it's very important that we touch base with our students and our parents, because both of them need to understand what is the pipeline, what is it that the students need to do, whether it's filling out the application, filling out their FAFSA, which is their financial aid, or their California Dream Act for our students. I put in place either events. I work with my team to create events that are both innovative, but that they're engaging. I try to incorporate our faculty as much as possible. So getting our professors to connect with our students from the very beginning, I think it's important because our students start to see that connection. And with that connection, it's not only about doing well in school, but it's about gaining that mentorship for their career. Because a lot of our professors are actually experts in the field. They're out in the field working in that specialty. And so starting that from the very beginning, the student will not only get to see the theory or what they learn in the book, but they start to see what is it that they're gonna do once they're out in the working environment. And sometimes that actually helps the student make a better choice as to whether they're in the right, right career, or maybe they want to switch to a different thing. So I think for me, I always keep in mind, how can we get our students to know about the different types of opportunities they have, and then connecting them with those that are in the field already in the work, already doing the work, so that they can make a better choice.
Great, thank you. And I love the point that you made about mentorship. I think that that's one of the areas that our students can really be strong in, and it's probably what they are most apprehensive about, making those relationships. Can anybody else talk about their role and how that role evolves through the life cycle of the admission process?
Yeah, I think just to follow up on what she said about mentorship, it's crucial. I'm not admissions. I don't work in admissions at Annenberg. We do have an amazing admissions team at Annenberg, led by Associate Dean Allison Hill, who's a great colleague of mine. But on my end in civic engagement, it's more about creating opportunities and providing safe space for students to explore and try new things, right? So one of the main things that I'm proud of is being able to create an academy from the ground up, such as the Annenberg Youth Academy, where we take students from LA County, from the local community, South LA, East LA, Compton, Watts, Boyle Heights, and we give them a platform to tell their story, to tell the story of their community, to tell their personal story, and the empowerment that brings. And that's even more important in the times that we're living in now. And as we're moving forward, we have students. Our students traditionally, because of where they live and where they go to high school, they don't really understand what we do at Annenberg in terms of media making, in terms of digital storytelling, because the reality is a lot of their schools don't expose them to that because of many other factors, right? So if we really want our inner city, our youth to be able to hone the process of their story, it's important because college counselors see it all the time, right? And you guys as college leaders see it, where a student, when they're applying to college, they get to that essay number 2. And that essay number 2 always looks a little something like this. Please tell me something about yourself, about an adversity, an obstacle that you've overcome, and what are you going to bring to the campus? It's framed in some way, shape, or form like that. And what happens? I've seen it years doing academic advising for youth. The kids freeze and they say, well, Mr. I don't know what to put. Mr. What should I put? Miss, I don't know, right? Because they've normalized all the trauma, all the stress and anxiety that they've gone through. They think that that's normal, that that's how it's supposed to be. So that to them doesn't qualify, in their mind at that point, qualifies as adversity. And then folks like us are sitting there, it's like picking needles. Like, no, like, I know you have something, tell me something, feed me something. And you start throwing leads and they're like, oh, well, yeah, I guess that was hard to overcome. And it's always, I guess, right? Because they've been taught to look at their story from a deficit perspective instead of an asset perspective, right? So when we're able to tell kids, you're a storyteller, you create your story, you own it. Who decides how to tell it? You. It just switches their whole thing around. So that's why the Annenberg Youth Academy teaches our students that, and just an overall in my career, I'm committed to teaching that, because then my goal is that when they get to that essay number 2, instead of looking at you and saying, Mr. Vasquez, I don't know what to put, for them to say, look, I got all these things in here and they don't fit. So help me cut down this list to highlight the top 3, the top 4, right? And that's another thing, right? That to what Dr. Hoyo said, right? In terms of mentorship, right? Our students don't know what mentorship looks like, what that feels like, right? But I preach to students 3 things. 1, resources. Go find resources. There's a lot of resources out there, right? But resources aren't going to come to your door. You have to go look for them. And to parents as well. Recursos para los papás. Hay que buscar recursos. Advocacy. Learn to advocate for yourself, right? And for parents, hay que enseñar a nuestros hijos a que aboguen por ellos mismos. Because sometimes I see students that have training wheels on. It's literally like they have training wheels on, and parents are scared to take those training wheels because once they take them, they're scared that they're going to fall. But what I tell parents is, remember when your child tried to ride a bike? Yeah, they fell a couple times. It's part of the process, right? And the final is mentorships. We need more people that look like our students to come into our communities and invest time and funding to be able to mentor students and expose them to fields that they haven't normally been exposed to, right? Working with parents, and I've found out that parents want their kids to be 4 things usually, at least reflecting on my work. They want them to be lawyers, they want them to be business people, they want them to be doctors and engineers. And anything outside of that, you're crazy to think that that could be a possibility. Now, your kid comes to you and says, I want to be a creative, I want to do media, I want to tell a story. They're like, what? Take that nonsense out of your mind and go be the doctor, go be a lawyer. And we see it so much in our Black and brown communities. So that's why at Annenberg, that's my thing, to expose them to a new field. Hey, if you don't want to do it, that's great. But at least you know that it's there, that it's an option for you, that you could be that person behind the camera, Black and brown, telling the story, that you could be the next Oscar-winning person, that you could do this because it's possible. And I think that's the most important time, especially in the times that we're living in now of uncertainty, of the unknown, of the stress, the anxiety, the depression. It's very important that we empower our students. And I'll close out with this. I shared it with you earlier, right? I was trying to figure out what to wear today, and I found this shirt in my closet, and it's from Waco, Texas. I was in Waco, Texas 3 years ago, doing keynoting a Boys of Color conference. And the shirt resonates to where we're at today. I'm educated, I'm inspired, I'm encouraged, I'm dedicated, which makes me empowered. All of our kids have that already. All of our kids are entrepreneurs. They just don't know it. They've been surviving. Now we have to teach them to take those surviving skills and how to thrive. They've been grinding, but now how can we take them from grinding and make it into a skill set that's going to help them in the classroom and throughout their careers?
I think that that's so important, especially empowering students to tell their stories, because for so long, I mean, to your point, they think that the things that have happened in their lives are normal. They've normalized the trauma, but then also they've been told that their story is not valuable. And so it's very important for our students to know, not only is your story valuable, but you have to tell it, because if you don't tell it, somebody's going to tell it for you, right? So I love that you're doing that. I'm sure that in your work with students, you guys get all kinds of questions. Can you share some of the common questions that you get from your students regarding institutional fit and how you support them through, their thinking about it?
I can just jump into this. So a lot of questions come to mind, mostly regarding financial aid, like how can I afford college? And I see this most with my students who have applied to a variety of higher education institutions, whether it be public, whether it be private, community college. They always start with, okay, miss, but how can I afford it? So then we always go, okay, you can either fill out the financial aid application or, the DREAM Act application. And for them, it always gets to the point of being like, okay, but how can I really afford college? How am I going to feed myself? Where am I going to live? So these are all things that come to mind for myself. So one of the main things that I ask myself is, okay, what is the student situation? Are they moving for a particular reason? Do they want to be away from their family, or are they going to be living at home? So those are a lot of things that I think about when it comes to mine, mostly because a lot of the questions that come after that are, how am I going to be able to be away from my parents or my family, mostly when they grew up very connected overall? So these are a little bit of the things that I take into account when it comes into a financial aid counseling session that I have, because I notice that every story is different. Not every story is the same. We know that the student has applied, the student has either had a variety of things going through their mind when they already took the first step of applying to college. So there's a lot of different questions that come to mind, but I think mostly just reading the story and knowing who they are first and knowing what their background lies in and what they want to achieve themselves is something that helps guide me through every single question that they have, because every student is different.
And I'd like to just piggyback off of that, Dr. Starnes, if that's okay. As a pre-college program, right, TRIO programs usually, or at least the program that I'm in, Talent Search and Upward Bound, right, we serve students at the high school level, right? So we help them throughout the entire college application process, right? Much like Cal SOAP, right? Like Darlene is also in. And aside from the financial aid questions, right, that we get, like how can I afford it? What, how much am I really going to pay out of pocket? The other piece, right, that Jaime touched on a little bit earlier, right, is the writing piece. Responding to the personal insight questions from the UC application, responding to, for example, the EOP questions, right, that the Cal State application for the EOP program at the Cal State level. And so writing, right, telling their stories. So yeah, finding those bits and pieces, right, about their life that it may seem normal to them, right, and letting them know, while it may feel normal because we grew up in this situation, because we are used to that aspect, situation, whatever it may be, for other people, right, and especially those who are reading your applications, it may not be normal, right? So let's look for these pieces, right, of your life that, and how can we help you write that, right, in a way where you are telling your story, right? You are owning to taking ownership of your story and putting it on paper. I think aside from financial aid, right, we get a lot of the writing pieces. Why I ain't got nothing to say, right? I'm not gonna. What else do I have to say, right? It's like, why am I gonna talk about myself? And so I think those pieces, right, are the things that I are always trying to reel in, right? And so we just had a workshop actually over the summer for our rising seniors, and it was an entire a week-long series of workshops on writing. That is the biggest piece that we see every year, right? And people and students tend to put it off to the last minute, but because they don't know how to express themselves in writing, right? They are dreading the writing experience, right? And then sharing your writing, right, is a very vulnerable thing to do. So, but anyway, I'll writing, right, telling their story, I think is also a big question that we get every year.
I think just to add real quick, when Nasaria said, it brought a great example to me that I do with the youth in the Annenberg Youth Academy. What I realized, and I was the same way when I was 16. I did not like to hear my voice, and I did not like to see myself on video. Those are two no. I have a deep voice, and kids sometimes growing up would call me and say that I have a microphone voice, and I used to get teased and bullied for that. But I didn't like it. I hated it. I was like, I don't like my voice, and I don't like seeing myself on video. And with the Annenberg Youth Academy kids, it's 2020, and it's the same thing. They have this fear of hearing their voice and seeing themselves on video. So what we do at the Annenberg Youth Academy is we have our media center, which is amazing, and it's a state of the art. We have a studio called a Studio A, which is our do-it-yourself studio. So imagine you walking into a studio with a camera. You don't need another person. You do it yourself. You maneuver the cameras, and we have them do a 30-second elevator pitch. And you should see their faces. You should see their reactions when they find out that they have to stare into a camera and talk to them for 30 seconds, which is not a long time, but for them, it feels like it's 3 hours, right? Because they're like, Mr., how am I gonna do this? I don't like to see myself, but we walk them, and yeah, it takes a couple takes, 2 to 3 takes, right? But we get them outside of this comfort zone that they're in, right? Because they're so locked into this comfort zone, right? And we teach them a 30-second elevator pitch because guess what? They don't know what a 30-second elevator pitch is. Some of our own undergraduate students don't have a 30-second elevator pitch ready. Some grad students don't because we haven't been taught that. But our peers on the other side of town or for affluent families, they have a 30-second elevator pitch down to the nail because they've been taught that since they were kids, that this is what you do to do them. And sometimes our students think, well, that's just in business, mister. Not in social work and not in education. It's in anything in life. You need to be able to sell yourself because like Dr. Hoyo said and Estadio and Dr. Starn said, if you don't do it, someone's going to do it for you and tell you what your story is. And if you don't do it, your story may never be told ever again. So you have to be able to master that. And we have to teach our kids and our familias the growth mindset aspect. Yeah, getting into the Studio A, doing the 30-second elevator pitch is hard, it's tough, it's uncomfortable, but it's stepping you out of your shell, giving you a growth mindset, una mentalidad de crecimiento, and not a fixed mindset like we're born to, right? Just to finish, I read an article about 6 months ago, and I've been telling this to kids over and over and parents all over the country, but I don't have a big name like the person who have said this. They interviewed Melinda Gates on Forbes, and they asked Melinda Gates, who I'm sure everybody knows who Melinda Gates is. They interviewed Melinda Gates on Forbes, and they asked Melinda Gates a simple question: what would be the best advice that you would give a young person to succeed in today's world? And this is pre-COVID, this is pre-everything. And Melinda Gates' answer was simple: get used to being comfortable with the uncomfortable. Get used to being comfortable with the uncomfortable, because the world we're living in changes. And what the young people on the other side of the screen have to understand is that some careers and jobs that you will pursue and do don't even exist today. They don't exist today, especially now with COVID. They're going to be growing as we go forward. So we have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. We have to embrace our voice and our images on videos, because that's how we're able to tell the story of our community and really transform ourselves.
Thank you. So we all know that we can't do this work alone. This work is too massive to do alone. What are some let me back up. Do you find value in using third-party resources to assist students? And if so, what are some third-party resources that you found valuable that students can seek out as they go through this process of determining what their next step is post-high school?
I can share. So I can share a little bit about myself. I went through the whole K-12 system being a very problematic student. I was sent to anger management twice. I unfortunately did some very bad things that gave me a juvenile record. So I was kicked out of Huntington Park High School and I had to transfer to Southgate High School. So by the time I reached my senior year, I kind of bettered myself because I literally just redid. It wasn't called A through G's back then. It was something different, but it was along the same curriculum. But I knew that I was doing enough and I was putting in the extra work to really, get that high school credit and also go to after school programs and get more credit. And additionally, really get myself to be able to graduate and maybe apply to college at the end of my senior year. But everything happened so quickly in senior year that I overdid it and I had 2 home periods. And for me, it was just I would go to school from 8 to 12. But by the time that October came around and, everyone else around me was applying to colleges, I noticed that I was like, why am I not doing it? Then I realized I don't know where the college center is at this high school. I don't even know who my own counselor is. And I didn't know a lot of things about the school that I should have known when I was a senior year. So I reflect a lot on how CalSoap, which is the program that I'm in, really would have like helped me grow and at least really know what colleges and universities were out there, or what route could I have taken that would have led me somewhere upon me graduating. Because when I graduated, I didn't apply anywhere. I just started working and I was like, I'll figure it out later on. But I really do think that programs like CalSoap are very beneficial, because mostly for CalSoap, one thing that I pride myself in for working for CalSoap is that they don't have a GPA requirement and they don't have a citizenship requirement, which is what we find that sometimes students that need that extra push are students like me, who didn't really have anyone else to go to, who didn't have a mentor, who didn't have anyone literally be like, let me take a look at you and what your story is and see how I can help you. So I think that's the most impactful that has been in my life. So I really do think that CalSoap, I really do think it should be everywhere. I am announcing that I'm leaving. I'm stepping forward to another position. So these will be my last 2 weeks with CalSoap. And I literally cried when I told my managers that I had to leave. And they were like, why are you crying? And I'm like, I'm so emotionally invested in my work with CalSoap that it makes me a little bit sad that I'm leaving my students. So it's been very impactful. So I really do think that CalSoap has been beneficial, and it will be beneficial for the years to come.
I'd like to add, because we work in very similar programs, right? The difference, with CalSoap and TRIO programs is that TRIO programs are federally funded, and so we do have some limitations as to whom we can provide services to, right? But I'd say, right, if your school has either a TRIO program, educational talent search, Upward Bound, a CalSoap, UCLA EAOP program, or any other college access program on your campus, take advantage of that. Look for that person and apply for these programs, right? And you would be able to get the help that you need. I'd want to also share a little bit, right? And I won't take up too much time, but the third party organization that helped me was being a part of a folklorico dance group, right? And folklorico, right, we practice the Mexican culture, right, through music and dance. And so for me, that was a life changer, and for me, that was a lifesaver, because I was able to find cultural agency. I was able to understand that this place was where I could practice social justice, because it pushed me, right, to understand my heritage, to understand our social dynamic and social situation, and prompted me to then pursue a degree, right, a higher education degree. And so I think that if I would have not joined, right, and I joined a club in high school, right, but I pushed through, right, and now I am a part of a nonprofit where we practice, this art and do educational workshops at the same time. But through that, we're able to very similarly, right, to like our CalSoap or TRIO experience, find those people, right, that are going to walk us through the process and be our cheerleaders, right, and root us through every step of the way. And so I'd always advocate for finding a program, finding an agency, right, outside of your high school, right, or if it's inside your high school, to participate in.
I love that you said the folklorico group was your resource, because sometimes we're looking for, okay, well, I need somebody to help me through this, not knowing that in those cultural spaces, there are people who are there to guide you and assist you through life, and college is a part of life. Are there any other resources that you all would like to speak to or share with our viewers?
Dr. Hoyos, do you want to go or do I go?
So I was gonna say, There are definitely nonprofit organizations in LA that provide services for different pockets of students. So for example, United Friends of the Children is a college readiness program that works with our foster youth in LA County. So, they provide them assistance in determining what type of school they would best like to attend, whether it's an in-state or out-of-state, whether it's a 4-year, a 2-year transfer route. At the community college level, we also have different programs such as Emoja and Puente, where students will be able to learn about the transfer process, learn about how they can do their application, what type of financial assistance is available in order to get to the 4-year route. And I do want to echo what Nazario was saying, because it really is about, sometimes we focus on so much what or how an organization is intended to provide certain information that we forget it could be given in any pocket, in any interaction we have, whether it's with your professor, whether it's with, I know sometimes I'm talking to students and I tell them like how I got to an administrator role. And for them, a lot of them, one thing that it still surprises me is that they're like, oh, I never thought I could be a dean, because they don't understand that in education, there's all these different roles. They always saw education as being something that's purely a teacher, a principal, and when I think about it, I'm like, wait, no, that's exactly how I thought about education. When I was in their shoes, I never knew about the dean world or about the administrator world. I always thought about education as being a teacher, the secretary, and so going back to what Nazario said, some of these outside agencies can very much be community boards, can very much be community spaces where you have that interaction and exchange of ideas and experiences. And not to say that they may be able to walk you through the whole process, but they'll be able to provide you with a snippet of information that can then pivot you and sort of like push you like, okay, I like what they're doing. They're working like with, engineering or computer engineering, but what is that? Where did you go to college? And then that leads to you asking more questions. So I do want to say that I definitely ask students to talk to their peers, go into these clubs, go to nonprofits that have after school programs that explore whether you are interested in a 2-year, in a 4-year. What are some of the benefits of going to a 2-year versus a 4-year? And what can you get out of those spaces? So that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to what Doctora Hoyo said, our youth and our familias, nuestros jóvenes y nuestros padres, we only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. We only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. And that really applies to our youth that we're working with, right? As working professionals, we're more open to new ideas, to new adventures, to maybe trying new things, to visiting a new country, et cetera, et cetera. But when I was 16 on Hoover and Slauson, my brain just knew one thing, and that's what I knew, and my mom too, right? So we have to get our kids outside of that bubble, right? And at the research center that I'm a fellow at the Center for Third Space Thinking, we have 5 attributes that we're training youth on using, which is called soft skills, life skills, survival skills, and they are adaptability, cultural competency, empathy, intellectual curiosity, and 360-degree thinking. I bring that up because everything that Dr. Hoyo said about looking for other opportunities elsewhere, looking for new programs and experiences, right? Students have that intellectual curiosity in them. They're curious. We're curious just by choice. And when we were kids, curiosity sometimes got us in trouble. Sometimes it didn't, but it's just part of growing up, right? So looking at other opportunities, like I go back to the Annenberg Youth Academy at USC Annenberg, or USC also has the Bovard Scholars Program targeting for youth from all over the country. USC also has the NAI program, the Neighborhood Academic Initiative Program, and the list goes on and on and on, right? But we have to look for them, and as youth, we have to be proactive and not reactive. Para los padres hay que tomar el primer paso y no el segundo, ¿verdad? So it's important to be proactive. And yes, some kids, it takes a little bit longer, but if we're able to connect and use our our community to really support us and moving forward, then I think we're onto something to really impacting youth for them to do things that they never thought possible. I mean, I have a young lady who reminds me, she was from Guatemala, went to Garfield High School, AB 540 student, and she came through my program the very first year. She shared her story, and now she's at Berkeley pursuing media studies. And she told me, I would have never, ever thought in a million years, Jaime, that I would be studying media studies. But when I went through AYA and I saw media, I said, this is what I'm passionate about, because I want to be able to tell my story and of my community. So again, it's very important to be risk taking and not risk averse, to look for new opportunities, try new experiences. Yes, you will fail. I'm not saying you won't, because we all fail. We all continue to fail. That never ends. But at least you took a risk and you saw something new, and you're changing the narrative and really allowing you to own whatever route you're taking, it's yours.
Thank you. And thank you for saying, that mistakes are real, because we've all made mistakes either throughout our education or through our careers. It's a part of life. And so many times our students can be discouraged by something not going the way that they think that it should go. So thank you for sharing that mistakes are all a part of this process as well. So I'm sure that you have viewers that are like, yes, I am ready. Tell me what to do first. So for students who are just now starting out on this exploration about, finding what college they want to attend, figuring out what the right fit is, what would you say the first thing a student should do? What is the first thing students should do as they embark upon this journey to explore which college might be right for them?
I could share what the youth told me this summer, which was interesting but not shocking. The first thing that they should explore is talk to your parents. Talk to your parents. Hablen con sus padres. Talk to your parents about your dreams, because what happens is that kids have all these ideas in their heads. I want to go to Berkeley. I want to go across the country. I want to go to Ivy League. I want to go to San Diego. I want. But because of family structures and dynamics, sometimes they're scared to share those ideas with mom or dad, because they assume or they already know, quote unquote, what the answer is going to be and what that drama is going to look like, right? So to avoid that, they just won't share it. And one of the things that I tell parents when I do parent trainings with them is I put a map of the whole world. And I say, why do I put this here? And a lot of them say, well, because it's the world. And I say, no, because if you're really committed to saying that you want your child to be successful, to go to any college, this is their playground. And they could play anywhere on this map. They could educate themselves anywhere on this map. They could travel anywhere on this map, right? So when you put it to them like that, they're like, oh, so that means that my son could go to Harvard. That means that my daughter could go to Michigan. Yes, that means, but you have to be open to it, right? So students, youth, talk to your parents. Yes, it may cause, I'm not saying it's gonna be a perfect conversation, but it's better than you go and apply. You don't let your parents know. You go, you get an acceptance letter, you get a financial aid letter, and all of a sudden that May 1st deadline comes, and then you say, oh, mom, I have to talk to you about something. What? Oh, guess what? I'm going to Harvard, I'm going to Berkeley. And then this whole argument pops up. And I've seen it firsthand, sadly, with so many students, where that student doesn't end up going to Berkeley, doesn't end up going to Harvard, because this drama and commotion applies. So make your parents feel invested, padres, and desde sus padres, hay que tener una mentalidad de crecimiento. Let's have a growth mindset. Be open to any ideas and thoughts that your children may want. Hay que estar abiertos a cualquier ideas que ellos tengan para ir a estudiar. They want to go to school. So let them go ahead and pursue that dream. And all we ask of you, todo lo que pedimos a ustedes, is be that support, that backbone support. Hay que ser el soporte para ellos. But students, talk to your parents. You should have seen how many students this summer in the AYA program. 4.07 kids, bright, talented, have done it all. Extracurricular activities. I mean, you name it, these kids. But we spent 2 weeks with them discussing the fear that they had about talking to their parents about college. And they have 4.07 GPAs, and they were terrified. So along with the Office of Admissions and Associate Dean Allison Hill, we created an environment where we did sessions, and one of their assignments was go talk to your parent about college. And guess what? They came back after feeling like, whew, all this weight came off your shoulders. And we were like, so like, how'd it go? You know, I'm not gonna say it was pleasant, but the overall conclusion was, man, it wasn't so bad after all. It didn't go as crazy or as bad as I thought it was going to be. It actually started a good conversation with mom and dad because now they know where I want to go. It's out there. So the cards are laid out. And so now it's up to me if I would decide to go pursue them, right? So again, I would say that would be step number one, immediately do that.
Actually, it's so funny that you say that because that is definitely one of the things that I'm starting to do. Like I said, one of the roles I have is that of creating new program and, you know, creating more ways to increase the awareness of education throughout our communities. And the parent component is something very big that I'm starting to build within our outreach, because our parents need to know what are some of the resources available to our students, what are some of the things that they can achieve, because sometimes our parents are still not aware of what's available to our students. Because I do work with our undocumented communities, that is definitely a conversation that I have when I was working one-on-one with students, I would ask students to have with their parents. And the reality is, because the sooner that our students know what is their status, the sooner we can connect them to the right resources. And it is a very difficult conversation to have, but it does also impact the choices or what they can do the next step. And so I do want to echo what you, Jaime, have said, because we have to be realistic that within our community, our family is a very big component of our students' lives, our students' identities. We can't just say, I'm gonna pack it up, y ahí nos vemos. Like they can't, we're not that program like that. And so the other thing is, what resources can they start obtaining on the earlier side of enrolling or choosing what best institution is, if our students don't know everything that they have to look into. And I always share with my friends, with my students, that when I was applying to colleges, I actually was able to get my residency right before I turned in my financial aid application. So whereas some of my friends were not, and yet they didn't know of their status. Some of my friends didn't know their status until we had to fill out that FAFSA. And I remember the devastation of some of my friends, because they were 4.5, they were in honors classes, but because they didn't know how to manage that. And so when it comes now to my students, I always tell them, yes, it is a difficult conversation, but we have to have it so that we can better prepare. Whether that means you can, definitely in California, you have the California Dream Act, whether that means you have to look for institutions that are undocumented friendly. Do we connect you with a DRC in those institutions? And if that is something that we need to look for, then that's definitely going to be something you think about when looking and choosing your institution. So definitely having the conversation as to what is it that they want to do, what is it that they need with their parents, their family, it's important. And the same can be said about other communities, like with our foster youth. I work with foster youth, that one of the main components I would always ask them is, do you want a college that has living spaces? Because if you do, then that that right away tells you have to look at 4 years. You can't look at community colleges right away because we don't offer housing. But how does that then translate to your GPA needs, the application process? And so it is about having that conversation with your counselors, with even starting with a mentor, or even asking your professor, your teacher sometimes, hey, I have a question about this. Who can I ask? So I think having a conversation and getting an idea of what is it that you as a student and you as your family need.
That's great advice from both of you. What else? What else should students be thinking? What's the first thing besides the conversation with the parents is critical, right? Because everybody needs to be on the same page. And I think it also is important for kids to kind of get an understanding of what they want to do, who they want to be. Is there anything else that you think students should be considering in this initial stage of seeking out the next step for them?
I think one thing that I thought about in my own personal life was thinking that I did want to go the lawyer route, even though I didn't know that lawyer and attorney are completely separate things. Everyone's just like, oh, let's be a lawyer, this, and that. So for me, it was pretty much set out that I was going to go to law school. My parents were very supportive in the way that they paid for my LSAT prep, and they also paid for my testing. But when it came to the day of me going to the actual test, I had a complete panic attack, and I was like, do I really want to do this? Like, do I want to live my next 3 years of my life like completely like locked up in my room, which I already do on my own, but do I really want to like invest so much time into something that I don't even see myself like being fulfilled by, if that's the way I want to put it. So I think for me, I became more accepting of the fact that sometimes plans don't go the way that you think that they do, or whatever career you think that you have at the top of your head that you want to do. It's okay that it doesn't work out. So I think I was in the middle of my second year academic year with CalSoap when I was just sitting there and I was staring at all the students that were in, and it was financial aid season, and I was staring at all the students that were inside the college center, and I was staring at all the staff we had there, and I was just staring at how helpful we were. And I literally was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to help students. I want to be there for students. I want to help them every step of the way. And that's when I decided, like, okay, I'm going to apply. I don't know what position will get me there, or I don't know what school will get me there, but I just know I want to do this. And I know I wanted to do something with education. So I think literally having that talk with my parents, and here I go being a 22-year-old, going to tell my parents like, hey, sorry, I don't want to do law school anymore. And me being very scared of the fact that they weren't going to be supportive anymore, or me telling them like I want to go into educational counseling, and they're like, what is that? So I think just having really that talk of really being more open to my support system and really letting them know like, hey, it's okay that I didn't want to do this, and it's okay that I want to do this now, has really helped me succeed and really be where I am. And like now that I'm looking into doctoral programs as well, when I tell them like, oh, I'm going to go into a doctoral program, they're like, you're going to go to medical school now? You want to be a doctor? And I'm like, no, like you can get a doctorate like in education. You can do this, you can do that. So I think really for me has been really being more open with my family, mostly because I'm a first generation Latina. I've decided to go the private route both ways, and also them being like, oh, that's expensive, but really talking to them like the resources that are available and basically all the programs and support systems that are set there away from home.
Thank you. Nasario, did you want to add anything? No pressure.
Yeah, I want to echo everyone's comments. Definitely right. I think a conversation that needs to happen is with your family. I as a first generation college going student and a son of immigrants, it's a family effort, right? Going to college is a family effort, right? And especially now that I have kids, right? It's more so a family effort, me being in a graduate program. But I think an advice that we tend to give students, right, is, for example, right, if they say, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a teacher, or I want to be XYZ, we ask them to do a little bit more research on the profession, right? And ask themselves, like Darlene asked herself, do I see myself doing this for the rest of my life, right? If you want to be a teacher, a part of being a teacher is grading assignments. Do you see yourself grading assignments for the rest of your life? Do you see yourself taking work home, right? Because that is a reality. okay with being mud, right? Are you okay with broken bones? Are you okay with things? Ask these questions, right, is also something to consider.
Great. I don't know if we got all of the last maybe couple of sentences. Could you say it again? You were breaking up a little bit, and I think that is very valuable what you were saying. So those last couple of sentences.
Yeah, sorry, I noticed my internet was a little unstable at the end. You know, do you see yourself being, for example, if you're saying you want to be a medical doctor, right? Do you see yourself seeing blood, right? Do you see yourself seeing broken bones? Is that something that you want to go through, right? Sort of touching on what the educator piece, right? Like if you want to be a teacher, do you see yourself grading papers, right? It comes with the package. It comes with being a teacher. It comes with being a medical doctor. And so do you see yourself doing these things for the rest of your life? And so I think that's, you know, probing questions to ask oneself when thinking about like, what career do I want to get into? So I think the career aspect of it, like, you know, are you when choosing a major, right, and choosing a college, do you see yourself doing this for the rest of your life?
Yeah, and I think for me to add on, you know, just an advice, you know, for those students that are on the viewing this, or for the parents that are viewing this, I want to tell you something. Hopefully you remember it. It's okay not to know what you want to study. It's okay not to know what you want to be when you grow up. It's okay. Students graduate from college with bachelor's degrees, still don't know what they want to do. Students graduate with master's degrees and sometimes still don't know what they want to do. It's okay, but give yourself the opportunity at least to build the networks, the relationships, to acquire the resources, the skills that are going to take you in whatever aspect you want to do. One of the things I tell students is college is not the time you're going to figure out what you want to do. But college is going to be the time that you figure out what you absolutely don't want to do, what you hate. You know, I don't like math. I stay away from math as far as possible. Stay away from me. Science too. I know that, but I figured that out when I got to college, right? I'm a people person. Okay, so how can I build a relationship? You know, so you figure it out, right? And the other thing is, don't compare apples to oranges, please. And parents, ustedes hacen eso todo el tiempo. Why? What do I show you? Because little Jaime is in high school, and Nazario sees this with his students, and little Jaime doesn't know what he wants to do he doesn't know what he wants to major in. He doesn't know what he wants to do when he grows up, but he knows he wants to go to college. You know, where we're just trying to figure that out, right? I'm telling my mom that, and then my mom, when I tell her that, brings up my cousin Luis, and how Luis, since he was 4 years old, wanted to be an engineer, or how Luis wanted to be a doctor, and Luis, and she's she nails that. What's wrong? And then she says, what's wrong with you? ¿Qué tienes malo? Porque tu primo Luis sabía desde 6 años que quería ser un doctor, un ingeniero, and you're 17 and you're going to go to college and now waste time and waste money while you figure this out? No. And that's not the right way to take it, parents. Esa no es la correcta manera. Because then what do you do to a little Jaime? You crush my self-confidence or self-esteem, or even that little hope that I had that I want to do this. It's okay. We're all different. Some kids, yes, since they were 8 years old, wanted to be an engineer, and they do good in high school math, physics. They go on to college, get an engineering degree, go straight practice. That's fine. But that's an outlier. I like to tell parents and students, that's not normal. The normal is the kid who's literally in Nasario's office and saying, Mr. Raskin, look, here are my grades, this whole college stuff, I don't know, my mom, yeah, all right, figure it out. And then once that student gets to college, you join student orgs, you join student clubs, you join Greek life if you want to, you get a job on campus, you get faculty mentors, you find resources, and then you start slowly building your toolbox with all these different tools that you could tap to help you, right? And then eventually you graduate, and if you want to go to grad school, great. If you don't, great. But you start figuring stuff out along the way until, you know, one day you're like, man, I like doing this. I like, you know, like for me personally, my aha moment didn't happen until I was 22, my last year at UC Santa Barbara. I worked in every job possible. I worked in housing, cleaning the dorms during the summer. I even worked for grounds. I can't even imagine me working for grounds. I remember putting this big leaf blower with an engine and walking around in the hot sun in the summer. I did that for 2 weeks. I said, no, I'm not built for this at all. But really what changed my life was I acquired an admissions counseling internship position my end of junior year going into senior year at Santa Barbara. And it was interesting because my bosses at the time became my mentors, and my bosses at the time allowed me to take risks and be creative and be a creative. But also what it did was that I was the only bilingual intern. I was the only intern that was from the neighborhood. So anytime busloads of kids from South Central, East LA came up to UCSB for a tour, guess who was their host? Me. So that allowed me to do campus tours. That allowed me to do presentations on FAFSA. That allowed me to do A through G. And it allowed me to start sharing my story. And I started asking myself, wait a minute, I could do this for a living? Like, this is a valuable option for me? Like, I could get paid to do this? Like, hang out in the office with my AC and my computer and just talk about how I grew up and help kids? And it really turned me to being like, this is what I want to do. I don't know how it looks like, if it's going to be in a role as an associate dean, like Dr. Hoya as an advisor. I don't know where this puzzle is going to end, but I do know that this is the route that I want to take. And I'm still in that route right now. You know, that was in 2007, 2008. So 12 years later, I'm still in that route. And I don't know what the next 10 years is going to look like, but I know I'm in this route. And hopefully something good comes out of it at the very end. So don't worry if you don't know what you want to do. Padres, no presionen, no le pongan más presión a sus hijos de lo que ya tienen. Tienen bastante presión. Our students have a lot of pressure. Just think about a normal senior year in 1 minute, or a normal senior year. A normal senior year pre-COVID is stressful as heck and crazy. And why? Because logically, everything you're doing your senior year is the last of it. Your last prom, your last winter formal, your last football season, your last soccer season, your last volleyball season, your last everything. And it's going to be remembered forever. And for a lot of our kids, you know, very small are going to go on and play D1 sports or collegiate sports. So that was it, right? Your varsity letter, that means a lot to a lot. It means a lot to me, right? But that's it. And on top of that, you have to apply to college. And on top of that, now FAFSA opens up in October. And on top of that, you have to apply to scholarships. And on top of that, you have to have this conversation with your parents. And on top of that, they're asking you, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? What do you want to major in? And now imagine during this COVID era, when we're doing it through a screen, oh my God, I don't even want to imagine what that stress looks like or feels like, because our students are under a lot of pressure now, even more. So padres, no pongan más presión a sus hijos. Don't add more pressure to your students. And it's okay to explore. Don't worry about it. I think in one way, shape, or form, all of us here on this panel are still doing that in our professional lives to see what's next or what could happen next.
Tons of great advice. Thank you, Jaime. So there are thousands and thousands of colleges in the US alone, right? And we keep hearing this word fit. What's the right fit? Which college is the right fit? Okay. So say you have a student, junior, they know that they want to study psychology, right? And psychology is a pretty popular major across the board. How do students figure out where they would fit best? How do they determine? Well, let me back up. What is your definition of fit? And how can students determine if a school would be a right fit for them?
So one thing I always had students do as a counselor was to write down sort of an assessment of what are things that they want, like, dislike. So for example, as a student, do you like urban spaces? Because if you do, and you apply to Chico State, it's not really gonna work, you know? But it could be that you just don't know what it is to be in the nature. And so researching, being like, you know what, being open as well, but taking an assessment of some of the things that they are interested in. You know, what are some things that do you need to be close to home? And what does that look like? is 2 hours. So like San Diego, something where it's a feasible distance, or is something where you're able to fly across the country to the East Coast? Is that something you're open to? So definitely looking as to what it is that you want to achieve, getting an information as to what type of size of the classroom are they going to be in. I think sometimes we are, as first gens, we don't think about, what does a classroom look like? I always tell my students the story of I got accepted to NYU and I saw a show. I can't even remember what show it was. And I saw the lecture room. I was like, yeah, that's not for me. I'm out. And I literally said no to NYU because of that one show. And I went to UC San Diego, not knowing that they had just as large of a lecture than what I saw on TV. So it's about, what is it that you want to look into? Do you like a small size campus or a small size classroom where the professor may know you on an individual level? Then that means you're probably going to do better in a small liberal arts school or a small private one or a medium-sized private, Do you want a place where they have a football team? Some colleges don't have a football team, and so does that matter to you? Obviously, the major is important. What is it that you want to study? But I always tell my students the reality, like Jaime says, I went into a lot of our BAs are really to give you a general idea, give you some skill sets, give you some breadth of knowledge. Because it's not until you get into your master's that you're starting to, I guess, funnel down to what your specific, trade is. Unless you go into a trade school like mine, where you already know you're going into carpentry, you're going into working with automotives and diesel like if you already know that and you know that it's something that you can do and you're interested in it, then that's the other thing. You already know that there's a place that you can get that. Because some careers will, like I said, only require that 2-year certificate and then the connection to the job industry, and you're set. We have a great lineman program, and a lot of people don't know about that they make a great living, but it is a very different type of work when you're doing electrical alignment, So getting information, seeing what is it that you're interested in. Do you want to be in large spaces and small spaces? So doing an assessment. And I know there's different workshops or work sheets that you can do to get some of these questions and answers to go through, and then starting to do the research of, I'm interested in this college, let me look at it online. The cool thing is, with our era of everything online, you have social media you can look for. You have their Facebook pages and you have their web pages that you can get an idea of what the campus looks like, what the surrounding looks like, what the student population looks like, because all of that may impact how you perceive or how you choose where to go.
Any other thoughts about fit? How will students determine the right fit for them, especially since they're probably not going to be able to physically visit campuses this upcoming year with all the restrictions? How can students best determine what fits best for them?
Yeah, if I can just jump in, I think one of the main things that I focused on now, because I did consider taking a leave of absence for my second year, because it's one thing to be a visual learner and it's one thing to be a virtual learner. And I learned that the hard way. Successfully, I passed all my classes with A's, but it was very much hard to really be at home within my own space. And just also being like, okay, I have 2 jobs and I'm going to school online and I'm trapped in my room 24/7. So one of the main things that I started to think about is how do institutions serve students now in this COVID-19 era? What are the resources that they're putting out? Are they making sure that students are practicing self-care? What are they extending mental health hours? Are they offering, certain types of resources that students don't even think about, mostly, learning online? I think one of the main things that I thought about too was that, I'm forced to work from home and I'm forced to go to school from home. But I was like, thankfully, I have high Wi-Fi thanks to everyone else in my family. But I think about all the other students that don't have that advantage. And I think about me not even having, even just trapped in my room, me not having a safe space to really be private and just cancel all that background noise. So these are many of the things that I also think about because I feel that many other universities and colleges maybe aren't considerate. They want you to have your camera on 24/7. They want you to, have your mic on just to create that background noise. So I think these are things that I think about and maybe students should be thinking about too, mostly because they're so new to this Zoom world, mostly that some of us might be used to.
Great, thank you. So we have about 15 minutes left. And in these last 15 minutes, I would like to invite you all to join me in my time machine. And we're gonna go back into time. Some of us have to go back further than others. And I'm talking about me. But I want you to go back to senior year of high school, junior year of high school for you. How did your high school prepare you for the college application process? This is a multi-layered question, so bear with me. How did your high school prepare you? How did you make the decision to attend the school that you decided to attend? Minus whatever show we saw on television. And then if you had an opportunity to do something differently, what would that be? So how did your high school prepare you? How did you make the decision? And what would you do differently?
I can go because I kind of touched on it. My high school did not prepare me. Unfortunately, I didn't even know where the college center was. So when I graduated from high school, I knew that I wanted to do makeup. It was like a thing to be a makeup artist back then. So I started makeup school. I started working for some little bit, and then I decided that that's not what I wanted to do. But I'm really happy that I tried that out because I really thought that this was going to be my career, and how was I going to have a retirement off of that? That was not going to happen. So thankfully, I went ahead and I enrolled in community college, and thankfully, ELAC is always sending out like flyers. They've always done that since the beginning of time, and just drop in your mailbox, and you just see the flyer, and you're like, college, like, okay, I'm going to go to college. So I started off at ELAC, and thankfully I had so many resources there. And I'm the type of person that will join anything. Like if they have this virtual hour, if they have this social hour, if they're giving pizza, I'm going to be there. Like just because I want to know. And I'm very much open to that. Like I like being the person that likes to explore, and like even if I'm there by myself or if I'm the only person in the room, like at least I know that I'm benefiting from something that I'm going to. So I think ELAC really did prepare me a lot to the point where I didn't even know what college fit or college match was. I just knew that I wanted to go to UCLA, and that was it, because your parents want you to go to UCLA because that's a school that they always hear about. But thankfully I tested the waters and I did a lot of things. I got accepted the second year, and unfortunately because I didn't pass math, I really did realize that I suck at math and I have a math learning disability. And these are all things that I learned in college. So I wouldn't have learned any of that if it wasn't for either my parents advocating for me, which they didn't even know they had the privilege to in my K-12 education, but really learning everything in community college really grounded me for what I was set to do in my next step in my life. So thankfully, because of all of the resources that they offer. I think I did like a summer program at UCLA and a summer program at LMU, which is my undergraduate institution. When I went to LMU, I was like, man, this place is beautiful. They have this, they have that. They have a Starbucks on campus. Later, I knew that almost all campuses have Starbucks. But when you go visit a college, you're like, man, these are things that like impressed me. They had like an Einstein bagels. I've never heard what Einstein bagels were before, but I was like, these are the best bagels of my life. So these are things that I really considered in my decision, mostly because LMU was just a really place that really did speak to me. And I really felt like even if maybe I didn't see familiar faces, like my counselor ended up being from Oaxaca, which is where my grandparents are from. And it's just like these little things that really connected me, where I was like, man, this person so early on is going to help me really succeed and really get to where I want to be in life. But I really do think that it's being open to using these resources that are available to you that really help you like build your path, or at least know where you're starting and where you can end off.
I'd like to go next. I also felt that my school did not prepare a lot of students. Unfortunately, right, I'm a product of, not unfortunately, but I'm a product of LAUSD, and I'm proud of being, you know, a part of my community. I'm actually not that far away from Trade Tech, so anyway, you know, it was for large, what now we call inner city public schools, right? Or now that I understand what these terms mean, right? It sort of is like survival of the fittest, right? Whoever is that A student or that quiet student who doesn't really make ruckus, right? Those are the people that are being pulled out for college access stuff. And so for those of us who tend to get a D here and there, right? Like I'm a C average, like like we say in Spanish, pasé de a panzazo, right? There really wasn't much opportunities, right? And while I had friends who were, you know, going to the college center, who they were doing the research and they were a part of, you know, these after school programs, I wasn't. And so I felt that, you know, high school necessarily didn't prepare me. And so the reason why I ended up at the community college, I started at Santa Monica College actually. And that was a culture shift. That's only like a couple miles down from South Central, but that would be a conversation for another time. But something to consider, right? There's weren't a lot of people of color, right, who represented the community that I came from, right? So anyway, the reason why I started at SMC was through Folklorico. That's why I said earlier, right, that Folklorico saved my life, right? Because while I wasn't, you know, involved in like any type of you know, activity, right, in high school, I was sort of like that meh student in like, I really don't know where I fit. So anyway, Folkloric, the coordinator at my high school who ran the Folklorico program, during my senior year, transferred to a different high school in West LA. And she was looking for teacher assistants for her English learner program. And because she also ran that program. And so anyway, she reached out to me and wanted to hire me as a teacher assistant. And so simultaneously, my career in education, right, as an educator, and my career as a college student started. It took me a really long time to transfer out of the community college system. I often tell the story that oftentimes like college students bar hop. I community college hopped, right? I went from Santa Monica College. I actually went to Trade Tech for a couple semesters. I took classes at LA City College. I took classes at Southwest. And then I landed at ELAC after my first son was going to be born. And so I was like, I need to get my, you know, ish together. And because of that, right, I transferred from ELAC to Cal State LA. And, you know, I stayed local, right, because I needed to stay local, right? Was I going to go to San Diego, right, and leave my wife and my kids in LA, right, and then travel 2 hours and stress myself out, right, for to come home? So I took the practical route because I wanted to continue my education. I wanted to get the degree. I found, you know, Cal State LA, and I loved my experience in undergrad as an undergraduate. Hence why I'm pursuing a master's degree there. But I think when I think about fit, right, and the reason why I chose the institutions that I chose, it was sort of like because of, I'd say, fate, right? Like it sort of led me to these things. But finding, right, the practicality of the Cal State system that I really enjoyed. And yeah, that's sort of, you know, my journey into academia.
I could share, and then we leave Doctora Hoyos last to close us off. Uh, time capsule, right? Well, let me just start with this. And I made a joke to my students this summer about it. Getting into college today is crazy. It's crazy. I mean, I'm seeing these numbers. I had a student with a 4.67. I said, how do you get that? Like, what do you have to do to get that, right? Uh, SAT scores, but now that it's optional, which I'm a huge supporter of, especially for our Black and Brown students, that's huge. But getting into college today, it's crazy. And it's only the sad part, it's only going to get crazier. And I mean by that, by harder, right? There's no way I get into UC Santa Barbara in the fall of 2003 with a 3.11 GPA. So not bad, not stellar, but all right. And an 890 on the SAT. 890 on the SAT, and I studied 890 on the SAT, right? And just to tell you how I'm wired and how these tests impact our kids, right? My brother scored about an 11 something on the SAT, didn't study, just showed up to take it because my dad dragged him in. So everyone's wired differently, right? So point is that, but to that extent, technology is great, but it's also made things more interesting because back then, and we all remember this, when it was college admissions time in April, decision time, you would wait for the mailman. At least I did, and if you got an envelope that looked like this, you already knew what the news were. You didn't even have to open it because it was like, oh, thank you very much. Unfortunately, blah, okay. But if you got an envelope that looked like this, before you opened it, you were jumping up and down because you knew it was something great, right? Nowadays, for some schools send kids an email. They send them an email with a pin and they say, click the email, click your pin, and ta-da, your admissions letter pops up. You know how much anxiety that causes into kids? Like I've seen kids with my own two eyes live give their pen to their friend and say, you open it for me. And the kid ducks below like the table and then they're jumping up and down. So it's crazy now, the whole admissions process, right? I started my freshman year at Santa Barbara in remedial math and remedial writing. So that just tells you where I came in at, and it showed with the 890 SAT score, right? Remedial math and remedial English at the same time, right? And then once I got into that classroom, all the people that look all the kids, all the freshmen that were in that remedial math, remedial writing class, the fall of 2003 UCSB, it was our home. Guess what? Guess why? Because they all looked like us. It was all the Black and brown kids thrown in remedial math, writing, because outside of us in the campus, we were the minority by far. Since then, Santa Barbara's done great things. They're a Hispanic, they're a HSI school now, but back then it was about 12% Latino and about, I think, under 3% African American. So when we were in that remedial writing, remedial math, we felt safe, we felt at home, because outside of those walls, we were different, right? And it's funny because when I was applying to college, my cross country coach at the time, he's still my mentor. He was a Berkeley grad. He had graduated from Berkeley, and I was actually scheduled to go to USF, the University of San Francisco, to go run cross country on a D1 partial scholarship. And then for some crazy reason, I get this envelope from Santa Barbara. I had forgotten that I had applied, hadn't ever visited the school, nothing. And when I opened the envelope, I see this brochure that I have somewhere here in my house with the beach. And I say, what the heck? Is this by the beach? So I took that brochure to my coach and I said, hey, is it true that this campus is by the beach? He's like, oh, it's beautiful, blah, 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 this, and that, you're gonna live by the beach. I was an undeclared major, undecided. Thank God they admitted me like that. And I literally said, and then I got my financial aid package, and it was a great package. I was an EFC 0 kid. And when I got the package and I saw the beach, I didn't know what majors they offered, what colleges, what resources they had, I didn't know nothing. All I saw was the beach, no South Central, beautiful Santa Barbara, no cops and chases and the helicopter all over. know in Santa Barbara, and I said, sign me up. Where do I sign? And everything else was kind of figuring it out, right? And as a kid from the neighborhood, when I got to Santa Barbara and I moved into my dorm and I navigated through Isla Vista, the first day they told me that I could ride my bike at night and nothing will happen to me. They're like, oh yeah, like everyone does it here. And I was just like, what? You could ride your bike at night and they won't try to jack you or like steal something? No, ever. And it just became this whole journey in terms of what that looked like. In the process, I failed. In the process, I ended up on AP. And ladies and gentlemen, on the other side, AP in college is not advanced placement. It's academic probation. So it means you're one step away from see you later, go home, right? And it took a learning. And then my end of third year, fourth year, I launched this outreach program called From the Barrio to Academia at UCSB through my fraternity, where I brought the sons and daughters of the janitors of UCSB for a full day of campus experience. Then a couple months later, I met my mentor, faculty mentor, Dr. Victor Rios, who I still do work with until today. And it just seems like the cycle just kind of took off, right? So, there is no right fit, is what I believe in. You pick a university for whatever, sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's because you did your research, but you end up just going on this journey, right? And like, who would have thought when I was growing up in South Central collecting cans with my mom at USC, asking her that I wanted to go to USC, and her telling me we couldn't because I didn't have money, that at 24, I was getting my master's from the public policy school at USC after collecting cans. And then years later, now I'm at Annenberg leading community engagement. But really what trips me out, really what like gets me going, is when I look at these two things here that I have in front of me. 2 books. I've written 2 books. I wrote a book in Spanish for parents called Buscando Vida, Encontrando Éxito, la Fuerza de la Cultura Latina en la Educación, to help parents tackle those hard conversations we've been discussing about with their kids, to get them to get a growth mindset and think about things, right? And then I wrote another book called Project Grit, Rethinking Youth from At Risk to At Promise, right? And programming for them from a program we did in Watts that we've actually implemented at Nasario's site back when he was at Alliance Collins. So it's just interesting how like you just got to take risk. And as first gen kids and as first gen professionals, one thing I want to tell you guys is you got to go get it. You got to go get it. You got to go get what's yours, man, because it's a hard world and it's a changing world more than ever. And don't be scared to take risks. Be that pioneer, that trailblazer for yourself, for your family, for your future family. If you choose to have family, I don't have any kids yet. I haven't been blessed to have kids. I know that when that day comes, it's going to be a very special day. My life's going to change, like Nasario shared, right? But I do know one thing that I ask myself a lot, like, how are my kids going to get it? Like, what's going to be their experience, right? Like, how are they? Because they're going to be second gen, right? So I think it's important that if we're first gen, embrace it, and to wrap it up, I always take pride that I could throw a suit and tie and go to a meeting at USC Annenberg or wherever I need to be in a meeting at. I have the master's that gives me the access, right? And represent my community, advocate for myself. But I could also throw on my cargo shorts, my Jordans, my Dodger cap, and my white tee, head down Figueroa, make a left on Slauson, go under the 110 freeway, and go eat my favorite tacos that I did as a kid that I still go to today, tacos huichos, and eat with my hands and take down 6-7 tacos, and I'm home. Or I could be in a suit with our development office, talking to donors about refunding my program, and I could speak on that space. So take pride in who we are. Our culture is beautiful. Black, brown culture, our cultures are amazing. They're beautiful. Be proud of who you are. Don't say like, oh yeah, I'm from East LA. Oh yeah, I'm from South. No, be proud of who you are. That's the community that raised you. That's the community you're in. Your parents probably still live there. So take pride in that. Navigate this whole journey that you're in, embrace it, be ready for change. And if you fail, you get up and you keep going.
Dr. Oyos, you want to take us home?
Yes, sounds good. So, going back to one of the things I think it was echoed throughout is that the reality is we are tracked even in high school. And whether it's good or bad, you are placed in a space where based on where you're at, you're going to get certain resources. I was very good. I was very blessed to be put right into the AP track. And when I say that is because I realized that in the AP track, they helped us write our personal statements. They helped us, as part of the assignments, they were like, you're gonna write a personal statement. Whereas my friends who were in quote unquote the regular class, I was like, hey, what are you writing? They weren't writing that. And so I think that that sort of fueled some of that, hey, no, you should be, let's write it together. So my experience in my school, I realized that from the very beginning, there's this whole, you already provide certain services to some students and to others you don't. And so I was able to get the assistance of writing my financial aid, attending the financial aid workshops at that time, our FAFSA was on paper, so we were able to fill it out on paper. So I think that because of that, I always had this idea of okay, I'm gonna go to college. The 4-year route, and that was a very interesting thing because I was always pushed to go to a 4-year. The moment I mentioned community college, it was like, wait, no, you're not gonna go to a community college. So one thing I would do differently is ask the questions of why not? Why are you telling me that I can't go to this institution? Or why is it that I'm being pushed to a 4-year versus a 2-year? Working in the 2 years, once I graduated, the 2 years can be a great option for our students, depending on what their needs are. And so I always remember saying I wish I knew more about the community college system so that I would have maybe it wouldn't have changed my decision, but at least I knew what all my options were. And I don't want it to be seen as a last resort, because I think at that time, or even now, we do tend to see the 2 years as a last resort. And so I don't want our students to maybe miss out on a great opportunity that they have at a 2-year because they don't see it as an option. And so one thing I would definitely say is knowing that you have different levels or different styles of universities, different styles of education systems, and that you need to see what it is that may actually work for you, for your needs. As Nazario was speaking, I was like, exactly. Your experience, you weren't maybe able to bounce across country or go up north or even the 2 hours. So it really depends on what your situation is and how do you utilize what's available to get you to the next level. Because you start at a community college, you may transfer to the 4-year if you decide while you're in community college that you want to be a teacher, that you want to be a lawyer, that you want to work as a mechanical engineer. And that may require you going to a 4-year, getting your master's, but you start as getting that basis of the education. How I chose, and I laugh when you ask that because I always tell my students I flipped a coin. And that was the worst and the best thing that happened because I didn't know. I didn't know how to choose a college. I had 2 options, and the best options were because of financial aid. That's what was guiding what my choices were. It wasn't that it was a great university. I didn't even know UC San Diego existed. I chose it because at that point we were able to apply for free, and I was like, free is where I'm applying. And when I chose based on, I literally was at the post office. It was the deadline. I had to get it postmarked, and I flipped a coin. And it worked out, but I always tell my students that's not always the case, because if you don't know where you're going, you don't know what to expect, you don't know how to prepare yourself. And so I do think that what I would have done differently is ask questions. If I have an interest in something, ask whether it's a teacher, whether it's your college counselor. It could even be that you have a friend who has a sibling, a cousin, your cousins. Ask them those questions of, hey, what should I look at for college? Where can I start looking at colleges? Go on social media, on Instagram, put in a college university, put college football. Sometimes they broadcast them. Start getting to know these different institutions. Community college is a great opportunity for many. and it could work for you. It doesn't mean that you have to go there. 4 years, you have your publics, you have your privates. Start asking what are some of the differences based on what it is that you're seeing. I remember, I'm sorry, Darlene, you are LMU alumni. One of my professors in middle school would tell me, like, you should go to LMU. And when I heard it was Catholic based, I was like, oh no, I can't go to a Catholic. They're gonna make me pray. And once again, I shut myself off to that idea because I didn't ask. And I didn't say, it's like, okay, what do they mean when they say Catholic school? So I do urge both, the students and the parents ask these questions. How can my student get there? How, as a student, just because you hear it's private, it doesn't mean that you can't afford it. It doesn't mean that they are not going to be able to provide you that financial assistance. So I think if I were to do something different, it would be to ask more questions so that when I took that, I wouldn't flip a coin. I would actually maybe make a more educated guess, but at least you know what you're going into and what are your options, because there are various options in California. I think LA is really cool in that sense that we have a good number of schools that you can go to within 2 hours. If you're in Compton, you can go to all the way to UC San Diego, it's 2 hours away. It's a great UC, but then you have an amazing San Diego State University, you have a private there. So definitely start, just looking at these schools. If some of them catches your name, if you heard something, ask what is the real name, and then start looking at it. Because there's definitely options out there for you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is amazing. I literally can sit here and talk to you guys all night about this. So you're so knowledgeable, and the passion that you have for your students is so evident. So I'd like to really extend a sincere thank you on behalf of Families in Schools for your time this evening, for your words of wisdom, for that energy is amazing. And yeah, I think we will toss it back to our Families in Schools staff to close us out for the evening.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to thank you all again for making the time, skipping dinner, and helping us get the word out on institutional fit, right? And we're really excited, and we're very encouraged and inspired by what you all had to say, by your personal stories, the trajectories that you've all taken to find the right fit. I also wanted to make sure that I let the audience know that we do, the scholarship is the 5 scholarships that we are doing through the Passport to Success College and Career Edition is actually available for any students that are in high school and are interested, whether they're in a 4-year institution, a 2-year, public, private, Catholic school. It's all good, so they are eligible for this scholarship. And so I just wanted to reiterate that. So thank you all for being here. I'm gonna stop the live in a few seconds, and we will come back on the back end.